Pakistan had approached various nations, including the IMF, requesting financial assistance to bail them out. Pakistan is battling a balance of payment crisis with foreign exchange reserves falling to $4.6 billion, barely enough to cover 3 weeks of imports. The Shehbaz Sharif government is considering different measures, including cutting down the salaries of government employees by 10% across the board. Apart from the economy, the country is facing a crisis on the political front also. The tussle between the Pakistan government and former Prime Minister Imran Khan is getting fierce. Pakistani authorities on Wednesday arrested senior leader of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Fawad Chaudhry. The arrest of Fawad, a close aide of ousted Prime Minister Imran Khan, came amidst rumours that the government may arrest PTI chief and former Prime Minister Imran Khan.
पुलिस ने हरासा शुरू कर दिया है. हमारे वर्कर्स के ऊपर 1-2 गिरफ्तारियां शुरू होगी और प्लान बन गया पकड़ने का. और ये जो फवाद चौधरी का हुआ है, तो ये अभी से ही पूरा प्री प्लान बना हुआ है. डाल दे जेल में. कितनों को डालेंगे? इसलिए मेरी कौम, आपको अगर अपने आप को बचाना है, आपको अल्लाह के हुक्म पे चलना पड़ेगा, इंसाफ के साथ खड़ा होना पड़ेगा.
The arrest of Fawad further deepens the political fault lines in Pakistan, where the Khan-led opposition is demanding snap polls. Bureau Report, India Today.
Sensational claims have been made by former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in his upcoming book. He's claimed India was apprehensive Pakistan would launch a nuclear strike after the Balakot airstrikes. He's written that he received a call from India saying Pakistan was planning to carry out a nuclear strike and that India would respond. He claims he spoke to Pakistan's then Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa. He of course says that he spoke to those in charge in Pakistan, and it's the Pakistanis who denied that they were preparing for a nuclear strike.
February 26th, 2019. The day when a small pack of Indian Mirage 2000 fighters crossed the LOC at night and dropped bombs that would land outside Pakistan's Balakot town. A tense aerial battle followed the next morning, with Indian pilot wing commander Abhinandan Vartaman famously shooting down a Pakistani F-16 before being shot down himself and captured. But the escalation abruptly ended there. Four years later, disturbing new light has been thrown on what the Balakot bombings triggered.
While the Indian ambassador to the United
Mike
States,
Pompeo, US Secretary of State, during the Balakot airstrike, has pulled the covers of an episode that he says came close to an actual nuclear exchange. Pompeo says he got a call from an unnamed Indian official minutes after the Balakot operation. The top US diplomat, who was in Hanoi on an official visit, says he had to act immediately. He goes on to say that the US State Department then dropped everything to focus on convincing both India and Pakistan that the other was not preparing to go nuclear. Pompeo, a possible future contender of the US presidency, has been a strong proponent of India and advocated for a bigger alliance between Washington and Delhi. Coming from someone who sat at the top of the international table and from someone who has headed the CIA, Pompeo's words also serve to establish the success of the Balakot airstrikes, something Pakistan has unsuccessfully tried to deny thus far. Did India and Pakistan come closer than ever before to a nuclear exchange? Now we know. Bureau Report, India Today.
There was some stone pelting at the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru University late last night and protest this morning at the Jamia Millia Islamia. The Students' Union announced they would screen the controversial BBC documentary, but the university administration turned down the request. When students at JNU insisted they would still go ahead, electricity in that area was cut off. Both the left and the right-wing students' bodies have accused each other of violence.
JNU at the heart of another showdown. As students got seated for the screening of the BBC documentary on Prime Minister Modi on Tuesday night, suddenly the campus was plunged into darkness. Students began watching the documentary on their phones, but then with the darkness came the ruckus.
Students are saying that with no electricity inside the campus, the situation is not safe, the conditions are not safe, and they will be in fact going out and sitting at the gates of the university. The JNUSU and the other members of the left groups have also claimed that they have caught some students belonging from the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, but these are just the claims that have been made by the different faction of the students.
Allegations of stone pelting, students seen running in panic, and soon enough a showdown between the SFI and ABVP. Hours after the chaos in the JNU campus, a back and forth has broken out between the two student groups.
आप लोग FIR कराएंगे? Obviously FIR कराएंगे, लेकिन बात है इस समय पे स्टूडेंट्स को इवैक्यूएट करनी सबसे ज्यादा अर्जेंट और इमरजेंसी काम है। FIR JNUSU करवाएगी। हम ये बाकी मीडिया को बोलना चाहते हैं कि बड़ी-बड़ी ईंटें चली है, पत्थरबाजी ABVP के तरफ से हुआ है और प्रशासन और पुलिस द्वारा कोई भी अभी तक रेस्क्यू किसी भी तरीके से इवैक्यूएशन नहीं किया जा रहा है।
अगर यहाँ मीडिया नहीं होती तो मैं पक्का कह सकता हूँ इनकी मॉब लिंचिंग हो गई होती, क्योंकि आप देखिए जिस तरीके की तैयारी है, नीतीश नारायणन SFI कैडर हैं, ये यहाँ देखिए क्या कर रहे हैं झाड़ियों में लाठी डंडे लेकर के।
After the SFI accused ABVP of pelting stones, the right-wing student groups hit back, claiming the clashes were between SFI and outsiders, even releasing images of the alleged perpetrators.
जो तमाम ये लोग जो हैं ये JNU के अंदर जामिया के लोग, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के लोग, ये लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? ये जो चेहरे हैं इसमें से सिर्फ 2 JNU के हैं, बाकी सब ये लोग कौन है? मीडिया के, ये ABVP का तो एक्टिविस्ट था नहीं, जो भी हम फुटेज दिखा रहे हैं मीडिया के माध्यम से
बाहर से लोग हैं।
एग्जैक्टली ये सब बाहर के हैं।
Many universities and political outfits have now taken a cue from JNU and are holding multiple screenings of the Modi film, with part 2 of the BBC documentary released now. This showdown continues to snowball. Bureau Report, India Today.
Actor, author, commentator Kabir Bedi has a word of advice for these protesting students. He, of course, spoke very strongly against the BBC documentary and he said there was a malafide intent. I spoke to him a short while back. Let's listen in. International author, actor, speaker and commentator Kabir Bedi on this controversy around the BBC documentary. Sir, welcome on India Today. Sir, what is your objection to this BBC documentary?
You know, I am not for bans in general, but I really feel this documentary should be banned for the following reasons. One, they have raked up a matter that's 20 years old, that's settled in the Indian courts, put together some inquiry of theirs, headed by Jack Straw, a man totally discredited as a minister, who was a foreign minister in England, who proclaimed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and sent hundreds of Englishmen to their death based on his false assertions and promises. So this documentary, what does it try to do? It tries basically to discredit the Prime Minister of India, who's been twice elected by handsome majorities of the world's largest democracy.
Okay.
And they're doing it over an issue that has been long settled in Indian courts, and in a way that is so biased that I just don't believe the BBC could do something like this. So I'm totally opposed to this.
So you're accusing the BBC of having a bias. You've also had credibility with the inquiry, with the British inquiry. Why is the credibility of the British probe in question, according to you?
Because Jack Straw himself is in doubt. He's the man who lied to the British public, talking about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, sent England, along with Tony Blair, into the war, killed God knows how many British young men in that war, and discovered no weapons of mass destruction. So he is a discredited witness to start with. Secondly, this is an inquiry conducted by some people sent by him to India. Was it a judicial commission? Was there any official standing to this inquiry? Is it more credible than the decisions reached by the Indian courts?
Okay.
This issue has long been settled by the Indian courts. And, you know, there were two special investigative teams set up by the Supreme Court during Congress tenure to investigate whether Modi was responsible. Both cleared him. And for Jack Straw to stand up and say he believes, and he can say everything he wants. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear. Go on, sir. Strength 5.
He can say anything he wants. But if he is given a star rolling in this British documentary, I question the motives of the BBC in making this, because it's a publicly funded corporation. And they have every responsibility. They have every responsibility for the public good. This neither serves the public good in England nor the public good in India.
Sir, you're questioning the intent of the BBC. You've called BBC's documentary gutter journalism. You've accused them of scavenging for sensationalism. These are very strong words, sir. What prompted this?
It is gutter journalism. It is. And I use those words advisedly. I have great respect for the BBC in many respects, but this documentary, I cannot understand how anyone would air it. You know, this documentary was not made by the BBC. It was made by somebody else and sold to the BBC. Why did the BBC buy a documentary like this that rakes up things 20 years old, long settled, you know, attacking the reputation of a prime minister of the largest democracy in the world, 8 years after he's been in power, 20 years after an incident they talk about, which has long been settled here? What is the motivation of the BBC? Why do they do things like this? This only stokes more tension between Hindus and Muslims, and therefore I think it should be banned because it's an incitement to violence, in my opinion. It doesn't do any good for relationships between Hindus and Muslims in England either. And therefore I think the British BBC has been extremely irresponsible in buying and airing a documentary of this nature just for sensationalism. That's why I call it gutter journalism.
Sir, but is there any evidence that it's been bought and not made by them? Are you saying that the intent of this documentary, of the filmmakers, the intent itself is malafide, aimed to foment communal tension in India?
You know, I think there are various institutions in England, including The Guardian, including The Economist, and now perhaps even the BBC, which have always peddled the Congress narrative. If the Congress propaganda cell made this documentary, they could not have made a better documentary in terms of trying to malign the image of Narendra Modi. A lot of people in the West, a lot of intellectuals, even in India, don't like Prime Minister Modi because he's not one of the westernized elite club. And therefore, he's not one of us, as they say. It's true, he's not. He's a man from the heartland of India. He's a man who speaks Hindi with pride. He's a man who has come to terms on his own terms.
Okay.
And therefore, Why the BBC makes a documentary like this is beyond me. And the fact that nobody's been punished or fired for making a documentary like this surprises me. They might, they're very clever, because in this documentary, while even making all these heinous charges, they keep saying, however, this matter was cleared by the courts, almost a sideline. However, this matter was adjudged to be different. A throwaway. Those are the main points. From the beginning, the first 2 minutes of the documentary say, Modi's rule has been marked by religious turmoil in India. Well, there's not been one major communal riot in the last 8 years, and they talk about religious turmoil in India. I find that offensive. That's why I use such strong language against the BBC. They have acted very irresponsibly, and somebody should lose their jobs in the interest of fair reporting in journalism and belief in the truth of the matter. This is just a hatchet job, a smear decision to smear Prime Minister Modi because somebody has a personal agenda against him. I can't think of any other reason.
So very strong words coming from you. Of course, Congress Party senior leader Rahul Gandhi, he's on his Bharat Jodo Yatra, and he said truth has a nasty habit of coming out.
I really don't want to dignify Rahul Gandhi's comments. Since Rahul mentioned Rahul Gandhi, let me say, not a single inquiry was conducted of any importance on the Sikh massacres that took place in Delhi. The people involved in them were roaming freely. The truth has surfaced about that many times, but it has been largely covered up by the Congress government during the years in power. So let's not get into Rahul Gandhi and the Gandhis and who was responsible for that. Let me just say that as far as this documentary is concerned that the BBC made, it is not the truth. And it is not the truth because the Indian Supreme Court have said so. Every inquiry has said so. Modi is not personally responsible for those riots. And therefore, for Rahul Gandhi or Jack Straw or any other anti-Modi person to say this is their business. Why this is highlighted by the BBC is something that I do not accept and I find offensive.
Sir, as always, free, frank and fearless, Kabir Bedi, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. We'll track developments on the story closely. That's all I have for you on India First this evening. Coming up next is Abha Bakaya with Business Today. Stay with us.
Naomi Campbell, Shalom Harlow, Irina Shayk. Well, no, they did not go to a zoo. This was the Schiaparelli showcase at the Paris Couture Week 2023. An eye-catching, attention-grabbing showcase of couture from the house of Schiaparelli has the internet gone wild. The Spring 2023 show also saw Kylie Jenner in the front row wearing a signature outfit from this collection. There was the leopard, the lion, and the she-wolf representing lust, pride, and avarice in Dante's allegory in hand-sculpted foam fabric with wood, resin, silk for fur, and all hand-painted to make it come to life as much as possible. Dante's Inferno is an allegory or a poem or a story with a hidden meaning, which is usually religious or political, to convey a tale of soul's journey through sin to salvation. Not just that, the all-red Doja Cat wore a Schiaparelli couture piece embellished with 30,000 Swarovski crystals held at the Petit Palace in Paris. Pat McGrath even thanked Doja Cat on Instagram for having the patience to sit for 4 hours and 58 minutes That's 2 minutes short of 5 hours to create this iconic look. While there has been an ongoing debate on the quote-unquote problematic representation of taxidermied animals, Schiaparelli as a brand has stated that no animals were harmed in making this look. Daniel Roseberry's signature surreal gold-plated faces with glistening bronze gold face and body paint did make a statement on blurring the boundaries between real bodies and inanimate objects. While the world has always seen Balenciaga making headlines and controversies, and thanks to Demna Gvasalia, the brand is always the one which is in news, Schiaparelli's creative director Daniel Roseberry this time almost seems to have cracked the Demna code. In New Delhi, Shayati Narula for India Today.
Congratulations on this good set of numbers that you've reported. Your own take, was it in line with your expectations or better than your expectations? And also, what were the key factors that really supported the bottom line?
As you know, we were the first ones in the life insurance space to do a M&A, and we had guided the street that we will be margin neutral about a year down the line, but very happy to share that we are already at margin neutrality, which means that the combined entities' margins, new business margins are in line with where we were last year, and from here on we will continue to build that upwards. So slightly ahead. Apart from that, very happy in terms of whether it's in top line. We have grown faster than the sector at 17%. And all the elements of growth, our agency channel, their share has grown from about 14% to 18%. Annuity has trended upwards above 60%. Protection sequential growth has been about 13-14%. Credit life has grown upwards of 50%. And hence, because of all of this, this has not surprisingly resulted in fairly healthy margins and also a healthy PAT, like you mentioned, of over 15% growth.
What are the trends that you're already witnessing? 20th of January already here, in January, and for the entire FY23, can we safely say it's going to